Hello and welcome to Warcraft Daily for today the 9th of January 2014. So in today's news, first of all, we have a whole bunch of different Twitter things from various developers, and it's going to be mainly about Warlords of Draenor stuff. Overall, very interesting. Then once again, we have some cool stats from the people at MMO Champion, and then we're going to round off the show with a little bit of customer service, because hey, that's how we all like to finish the day. Anyway, so Twitter stuff. First of all, I'm really kind of starting to ramp up my Twitter coverage. I follow pretty much all of the Blizzard developers, and I spend like a good half an hour just reading through all of them before the show, which means that we really can just get a lot of really good information right from the horses. The horse's mouth, that's it. Oh, and a completely shameless plug. Follow me on Twitter, it's in the description, I tweet all the time, and it's also the best way to find out when videos come out, because as I'm sure you're all aware, YouTube sub boxes are absolute shite. Anyway, let's start off with one guy you probably all know, and that's Celestian. So when talking about ability bloat, he said that they are actually making really big strides in-house. They don't have any announcements to talk about yet, but honestly, he seemed a lot more positive than he did from previous statements. Previously, it seemed like they were having a really hard time identifying what sort of things that could be removed, and what would be kind of just the pointless things that only add bloat but no gameplay. Now, personally, what I'd imagine is that they have came along quite a bit in terms of the level 100 talents and then the level 90 to 100 upgrades, so in light of these changes, they'll be able to just work around some of the more annoying abilities and therefore remove them. And the nice thing is this will remove needless buttons that are just a pain in the arse, but still not really have an effect in gameplay. In fact, with less clutter, I think it would increase your gameplay value, because I think let's just have an example, okay? So let's say my warrior, right? My warrior has currently got 24 keybinds, and I use every single one of them, and honestly, I need about 2 more. Now, that would be definitely considered to be a little bit too much for some people. Honestly, I think they could probably preen out about 4 of those without losing any gameplay depth, because of the way things can be rolled in with new level 100 talents and then the upgrades. So really, it's less buttons, the same amount of gameplay value, and if each button has got more of a decision behind it, then I actually think it increases the gameplay value and makes the game more fun, because there will be a lot more differentiation in terms of the game's reaction to the response of you hitting a button, because the ability behind that button will hopefully be just a little bit more unique and a little bit more cool. So yeah, that'll be nice. Really, just as long as they don't touch some of the cool utility spells that really do reward skilled play, then I'm happy enough with it. What I mean by that is sometimes you just have those things like deterrence and feign death and misdirection, all those kind of different buttons which, when used in combination by, say, 2 really good hunters, mean you can ping-pong a boss, or you can do some really cool things with kiting trash and passing them between you and eke out a few cool raid kills. Stuff like that can really happen with quite a few different classes because of these nice, diverse utility abilities that we have. So as long as they don't touch them, I think it still leaves plenty of room in the high end for some really cool, rewarding shit to happen. Anyway, next up we have some cool stuff from Ian Hazakostas. He's actually just joined Twitter, so not really great in terms of information, but it's worth saying that he has joined Twitter, and you can follow him at WatcherDev. He's the lead encounter guy, so essentially bosses and things like that are all his team. Now, in terms of the information we actually got from today, well, basically he said Warforged gear is going to be there in Warlords of Draenor, but he actually said that the higher drop rate in 25 player was to encourage 25 player, so I wonder if this is indicating that Warforged gear will have just a flat drop chance instead of scaling up with the group size. The thing is, though, there is still more logistical effort in getting more than, just more people in general. However, it's more people without really having to meet that 25 exact boundary, so I'm not really too sure what they're going to do with Warforged. Honestly, I'd be happy enough with it being flat, and I'd also be happy enough with it scaling up at 25, because I think there's both pros and cons to both ways of doing it. So, yeah, I mean, whatever, it's cool. Right now in flexible difficulty, actually 25, well, just really a lot of players is easier than just, say, 10, because of the way that the boss's health and stuff, it doesn't really scale up proportionately with player damage, or at least as much. So maybe if that was to remain in Warlords, then I don't think that they should have any increases in the Warforged drop rate. That said, though, I really don't. I just think that the difficulty curve should be as flat as possible. So if you could go do that, please, Blizzard. Anyway, so the next thing is healing, and he said that right now he thinks it's a bit of an error on their part if an encounter takes, say, 3 to 4 healers and 10, or whatever the 25 equivalent would be, because it just creates a lot of really annoying social issues. Honestly, I've never needed 4 healers in any of the teams I've been in, but I think that certainly in progression we usually drop, or after progression even, we usually drop down to about 2 healers for some of the fights just to get through them quicker. Now with the flexible scaling, I don't think this issue that he described with, of course, really the 4th healer would be maybe pushing out a DPS, so that's the social issue he was talking about. But the thing is that with flexible, really, you can just take everyone instead of having to jettison someone in favor of an extra healer. So really, I don't think this is going to be a problem in Warlords, and that is all good. Now finally, he did say that there will likely not be a new kind of like whole and maybe say Gruul-sized raid that's mythic only. Someone basically suggested, hey, you could do like a one boss mythic only thing, but have it a separate raid. He said no, that's not going to happen, but they're still completely happy to do a Sinestra style fight wherever it makes sense. And honestly, the first part is completely common sense, but I do think it's nice that they're reaffirming this idea of a heroic in Mists of Pandaria or mythic in Warlords only fight like Sinestra or Raden. One bit of criticism I have, though, right, is that Raden's lack of decent raid testing meant that in some ways players were able to, let's just say, intelligently game the mechanics in order to make the fight a little bit easier than was intended. So if they were doing another boss like this, it would probably need more heavy internal raid testing, because any tiny, tiny little thing which can be gamed will be, or gained even, will be by these guilds, because like the likes of Paragon and Blood Legion and Method, you're not going to slip past them, so there definitely does need to be more testing, and the more the raids like that are tested, and really those final bosses, then I suppose it just does a lot of good work to help the integrity of the high-end raiding scene, which is still something which draws in a lot of attention and interest. I suppose if only they could get a few of those high-end guys in for a few test runs without compromising the competitive nature of World First, it would be great. But yeah, I'm not really too sure how to do that. Maybe their QA team, they should just like pay their QA team to go get really skilled and be their own raid team or something. Hell, they probably have that anyway. Now, we have one, just like last final bunch of tweets. It's from Dave, I think his name is Maldonado. Maldonado, Dave Maldonado. That's a fucking badass surname, so well done, Dave. But anyway, he has some interesting stuff to say. This guy's actually kind of interesting because he's not really a team lead or anything like that. He's just one of the team members, so it definitely offers a different perspective, and he can give some more of his own opinion, which is just really cool to hear in the context of him actually working on the game and being in those teams. So they currently, and this is the first thing, they currently have engineers experimenting in ways to make NPC pathing and a few different things like that a little bit more dynamic. And he also said NPC pacing, so basically just NPCs walking around the place. Basically, if they would make towns just feel a bit more realistic via, say, NPCs dynamically reacting to player actions and that kind of thing, then it could be really cool. I think a lot of people that were, including himself, were kind of quick to point out that this has been something that has been tried in a lot of other MMOs, and not necessarily to the degree where the WoW designers were happy about it. Still, though, I think there are some very cool things that could be done by this. Say if a town was being attacked by orcs. Maybe the orcs actually, properly try to chase down some of the villagers, and if a player stops that orc, the villager stops, turns around, thanks the player, gives them a thing. But instead of having that being all pre-scripted, actually have it just be a little bit more dynamic, and the thing that the pathing of, say, the orcs and the pathing of the NPCs is the kind of thing that's calculated by the server as it happens, instead of just being a predefined path and event. Things like that do make the world feel a lot more alive and a lot more interesting. I think another thing that would be nice is if some player achievements and things like that were reflected by NPCs. I think it comes back to the old Skyrim idea where, in Skyrim you were the Dragonborn, you slain the big evil dragon and entered the threat, yet none of the townsfolk actually recognize this achievement. So maybe they can do a few things like that with NPC to player interaction. It could be kind of cool. Still though, it's very hard to not make this feel utterly superficial, because we're not stupid, we know what an NPC is when we see one, and chances are they are, they aren't fooling us. They're not. Also, this is a third-person game, and as opposed to, say, Skyrim, which is a first-person game, and often it's inherently a little bit easier to get character-to-character immersion in the first-person context than it is in the third-person. I think a third person is generally better for conveying you and your team rather than you as the individual. But anyway, so that's just one little bit of a discussion. He also reaffirmed that there will probably be no dye on gear, and that is Blizzard's position. And then he said that most of all, spectacles are something that should, in his opinion, should be in the game, and they even had it discussed. And there's a chance that it may happen in the future, essentially. Did I say spectacles? No, I meant monocles. So let's hope that there was some kind of monocle-sporting warlord of Draenor that just gives us the lore reason to add monocles into the game, because that would be kind of fantastic for our characters. Anyway, so once again, on to the new bit of news, and the great people at MMO Champion have got some really interesting numbers for us regarding the percentage of players who have got heroic Siege of Orgrimmar kills. And someday I will work out how MMO Champion finds out this data, though honestly I tell myself this every single day, and nothing has really came of it yet, so maybe that will take a bit of time. Anyway, here are the stats. SoO Mercius, 8.9%. Protectors, 5.69%, Norishen, 6.31%, Shav Pride, 4.55%, Galakras, 4.75%, Juggernaut, 4.03%, Dark Shaman, 3.36%, Nazgrim, 3.56%, Malkorok, 2.37%, Spoils, 1.89%, Thok, 1.24%, Siegecrafter, 0.6%, Paragon, 0.41%, and Garrosh, 0.23%. So what does this tell us? Well, overall, it seems like a solid 5% of people are getting a pretty decent way in, at least with some of them seeing kills within the first two wings. And honestly, I think that this is actually good proof that there is still a decent market for heroics. Not every single heroic raider needs to kill every single heroic boss. People can still get quite a lot of gameplay and quite a lot of enjoyment out of only killing 3 or 4 of the heroics in a raid. They can still get that little bit of challenge after they've cleared the end boss, and that's totally cool and fine. I'd really like to know the numbers, though, for 10-player in specific, because generally 25-player guilds are far more likely to be doing heroics and that sort of thing, so to be able to see this distinction would be fantastic. Now, in Warlords of Draenor, Heroic 10 is actually disappearing because it's just being rolled in to the 20-player Mythic system, and I worry that this would kill off that kind of raid. I think a good example is my own guild. We are a normal guild, mainly, and we're pretty relaxed, but nearly every tier we do clear normal mode completely, and then we get some solid work done on Heroic. Since this will no longer happen in Warlords of Draenor, it means that we perhaps get a third less content, gameplay-wise, of course, not actual content-wise, because it's still the same amount of bosses, but certainly gameplay-wise, there's a little bit less time to put in there, I suppose. And I do think that there is definitely a good number of guilds that are in a similar position to us. I just looked at WoW Progress, and on my server alone, just about sort of guilds in general, there are 35 which are 10 out of 14 in Siege, 21 that are 14 out of 14, and then 10 that have made their way into Heroics. Now, given what the holiday period has done to my guild schedule, I think a lot of those 14 guilds will start moving into Heroic in January and February. But if you were to just extrapolate these numbers across most normal PvE servers, that's a lot of guilds, and that's a lot of people that could be left out by this change. So it definitely is a bit of a ballsy change, and I'm going to withhold judgment because I don't know what difficulty is going to be like on normal in Warlords. So yeah, whatever, it's kind of hard to say really, but I'm definitely keen to see what the future holds. I'm just a tiny bit concerned that they will, to a slightly lesser degree, do this sort of similar mistake that they did with ICC 10, where they removed one level of difficulty but never really replaced it. So, I don't know, we'll see how that all pans out. Anyway, next, we have some customer service excitement. No, it's not really that exciting, but it's actually kind of good news. Basically, they now have a callback system, so there's no more shitty waiting in line or anything like that. You do an online form in which you supply your phone number and that sort of thing, and then one of the GMs will call you. And this is pretty damn awesome, because I'm sure, as any of you who have ended up on on hold on a call center, it's not fun. You waste 20 minutes of your life listening to not only the worst music ever, but, oh god, the quality is so bad it would just hurt your ears. And it's nearly worse when they have good music and then the quality over the phone line is so bad that it's just painful. So yeah, rant over. Basically, good job Blizzard for investing in this infrastructure. and it provides a better customer experience to your customer, or customer service experience to the customers, and that's always a good thing. Anyway, that is going to do it for the news today. Once again, we are still holding out for Chris Robertson and his team to get the preview for whatever new model we're going to be getting in January up on the site. I'd say it's probably going to be sometime next week, but only time will tell. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please drop a like, and I'll see you next time.